Good evening, everyone. I'm Honorit Gula, and now I will be discussing the cognitive development in adolescence. And we have five objectives for this topic. First is explain the features of hypothetical deductive reasoning and give an example of how it assessed. Second, recall the two major critics of Piaget's theory of formal operation. Third, summarize the major changes in attention and memory that take place from middle childhood to adolescence. And the fourth, define the imaginary audience and the personal fable and explain how they reflect egocentrism in adolescence. And the last objectives is produce an example of the zone of proximal development and scaffolding involving adolescence. That's all the objectives for this topic. And now let's start with Piaget's theory of formal operations. According to Piaget, the stage of formal operations begins about age 11 and reach completion somewhere between ages 15 and 20. Children in concrete operation can perform simple tasks that require logical and systematic thinking, but formal operations allow adolescents to reason about complex tasks and problems involving multiple variables. It also includes the development of abstract thinking, which allows adolescents to think about abstract ideas such as justice and time and gives them the ability to imagine a wide range of possible solutions to a problem, even they have no direct experience with the problem. The stage of formal operations involve the development of hypothetical deductive reasoning, in which is the ability to think scientifically and apply the rigor of the scientific method to cognitive tasks. To demonstrate this new ability, let us look at one of the tests that Piaget used to test whether a child has progressed from concrete to formal operation, which is the pendulum problem. Children and adolescents are shown in a pendulum. When we say pendulum, it consisting of a weight hanging from a string and then set in motion. That's what pendulum is. Then asked to try to figure out what determines the speed at which the pendulum sways from side to side. It is the heaviness of the weight, the length of the string, the height from which the weight is dropped, the force with which it is dropped. They are given various weights and various lengths of string to use in their deliberations. In children, in concrete operation tend to approach the problem with a random attempts, often changing more than one variable at a time. They may try the heaviest weight on the longest string drop from the medium height with a medium force. Then a medium weight on the smallest string drop from a medium height with lesser force. When the speed of the pendulum change, it remains difficult for them to say what caused the change because they altered more than one variable at a time. If they happen to arrive at the right answer, it is the length of the string. They find it difficult to explain why. This is the crucial for Piaget's cognitive advances at each stage are reflected not just in the answers children's devices from problems, but in the explanation for how they arrive at the solution. So it is only with a formal operation that we become able to find the right answer to a problem. Like this. And to understand and explain why is the right answer, the formal operational thinker approaches the pendulum problem by utilizing the kind of hypothetical thinking involved in scientific experiment. And now let's proceed to critiques of Piaget's theory of formal operations. So formal operation is the part of Piaget's theory that has been critiqued the most and that has been found to require the most modifications. The limitation of Piaget's theory of formal operations fall into two related categories, which are the individual difference in the attainment of formal operation and the cultural basis of adolescence cognitive development. And the first category is the individual difference in formal operations. So, as noted in Chapter 4, Piaget asserted that people develop through the same stages at about the same ages. Every 8 years old is the stage of concrete operations, and every 15 years old should be formal operation thinker. Furthermore, Piaget's idea of stages means that 15 years old should reason in the formal operation in all aspects of their lives because the same mental structure should be applied no matter what the nature of problem. For example, an adolescent with experience working on cars may find it easy to apply principles of formal operations in the area but have difficulty performing classroom tasks that require formal operations. Adolescents who have or who had courses in math and science are more likely than other adolescents to exhibit formal operational thoughts. And that's it for the first category. And now let's proceed to the second category, which is the cultural variations in formal operations. So, questions have also been raised about the extent to which culture differ in whether their members reach formal operation at all. So, by the early 1970s, numerous studies indicated that cultures varied widely in the prevalence, which their members displayed an understanding of formal operation on the kinds of tasks that Piaget and others had used to measure it. And many researchers concluded that in some cultures, formal operational thought does not develop, particularly in cultures that do not have formal schooling that includes training in the scientific method. For examples, adolescent boys in the Inuit culture of Canadian Arctic traditionally learn how to hunt seals. To become successful, a boy would have to think through the components involved in hunt and test this knowledge of hunting through experience. If he were unsuccessful on a particular outing, he would have to ask himself why. Was it because of the location he chose, the equipment he took along, the tracking method he used, or were there other causes? This would be hypothetically deductive reasoning, altering and testing different variables to arrive at the solution to a problem. And that's it for the second category. Now let's proceed to the other changes in adolescence thinking. Piaget's theory of formal operation has inspired a great deal of research on adolescence cognitive development. However, information processing research shows other types of gains in cognitive development from childhood to adolescence. The social cognition develop as well and takes two distinctly adolescence form. First is the information processing, selective attention, and meta memory. So, in the previous chapters, attention and memory are two keys to cognition in the information processing approach. And in both areas, distinctive forms of cognitive development in adolescence. Adolescents have become more proficient at both selective and divided attention, and they become better at using memory strategies. And when we say divided attention, it involves people performing simultaneously tasks like reading stories while listening and waiting something else. And and meta memory refers to knowledge about one's own memory, abilities, knowledge about how memory function for different tasks, and what strategies can be used to handle such tasks. Next is the long-term memory. The memory process in the brain that takes information from the short-term memory store and creates long-lasting memories, and also improves in adolescents that have more experience and more knowledge than children. Then the last one is the short-term memory. It is the capacity for holding but not manipulating a small amount of information in mind in an active, readily available state for short period of time. Also, the capacity of short-term memory is limited, so the more information you have in there already, the less effectively you can add new information to it. And the next is the social cognition, the imaginary audience, and the personal fable. The imaginary audience refers to adolescents' tendency to believe that others are always watching and evaluating them. The personal fable refers to the belief that the self is unique, invulnerable, and omnipotent. The cognitive development in adolescence includes the development of metacognition, which is the capacity to think about thinking. This advance includes the ability to think about not only your own thoughts but also the thoughts of others. Adolescents are generally better at metacognition than younger children. However, when their metacognition or metacognitive abilities first develop, adolescents may have difficulty distinguishing their thinking about their own thoughts from their thinking about the thoughts of others, resulting in distinctive kinds of adolescence egocentrism. Ideas about adolescence egocentrism were first put forward by Piaget and were developed further by David. And according to Elkind, adolescence egocentrism has two aspects: the imaginary audience and the personal fable. When we say the imaginary audience, it is a belief that others are acutely aware of and attentive to one's appearance and behavior, while the personal fable, it is a belief in one's personal uniqueness, often including a sense of invul- invulnerability to the consequence of taking risk. And the last one is the culture and cognition. In previous chapters, two of Vygotsky's most influential ideas are scaffolding and the zone of proximal development. The zone of proximal development is the difference between skills or tasks a person can accomplish alone and those they are capable of doing it if guided by a more experienced person. Scaffolding refers to the degree of assistance provided in the zone of proximal development. In Vygotsky's view, learning always takes place via social process through the interaction between someone who possesses knowledge and someone who is in the process of obtaining it. Scaffolding and zone of proximal development continue to apply during adolescence when the skills necessary for adult work and being learned. An example can be found in research on waving skills among male adolescents in Douala culture in Ivory Coast on the western coast of Africa. An important part of Douala economy is making and selling large handmade clothes with elaborate designs. The training of weavers begins when they are aged 10 to 12 and continues for several years. As this example illustrates, learning in adolescence is always a cultural process in which adolescents are acquiring the skills and knowledge that will be useful in their culture. Increasingly, the skills and knowledge of the global economy involve the ability to use information technology, such as computers and internet. In most countries, the highest paying jobs require these kinds of skills. However, as the example of Douala illustrates, for the majority of the world's adolescents, the most necessary skills and knowledge are those involved in making things for the family. And that's all. Thank you.